Bismillahirrahmanirrahim. Assalamualaikum warahmatullahi wabarakatuh. Now I will do retelling about a short story. The title is Green Tea by Joseph Sheridan Levanu. One evening, Dr. Hazelius meets the Reverend Mr. Robert Liner Jennings at the house of a mutual friend, Lady Mary Haydock. In an aside, the hostess informs the doctor of Mr. Jennings' probity and good standing in the community. Nevertheless, the clergyman's health is uncertain and he seems subject to sudden and mysterious collapses. With some evidence embarrassment, the clergyman engages Dr. Hazelius in a discussion of metaphysical medicine and evinces an active interest in the doctor's publications on the subject. Later, Lady Mary mentioned that Mr. Jennings' late father and seen and spoken with a ghost. On the following evening, the clergyman sends his calling card with a note requesting a consultation with Dr. Hazelius. At Mr. Jennings' house in Richmond, the doctor is received by Jones, the vicar servant. The clergyman has been detained by work in his parish. While waiting in his host's library, Dr. Hazelius comes on a set of the complete works in Latin of Emanuel Swedenborg, the Swedish mystical philosopher. Perusal indicates that Mr. Jennings has understood such a passage as "My good compassionate me." As Dr. Hazelius continues, he realizes with a start that 4 eyes were reading the passage. Mr. Jennings' announced return is revealed by his visitors reflecting in an overhanging mirror. He abruptly embarks on a conversation about the origins of illness, and he confounds the doctor with his spirit denunciation of materialism in medical talk. Dr. Hazelius is taken aback, particularly by the abrupt fluctuations of unnaked gloom and brisk gaiety in his host's demeanor. After 5 weeks, Mr. Jennings again summons the doctor to his home, and there sets forth his own diagnosis of the maladies that have taken possession of him. Already he has been described as having once been an inveterate tea drinker. Already he has been described as having once been an inveterate tea drinker. Mr. Jennings now maintains that his nervous sensibilities have been upset by the consumption first of black and then gradually and more industrially of green tea. Even a change in his habits has not improved his condition. More than that, he is stalked by a curate that, whether imagined or real, relentlessly insinuates itself into his file of vision at every turn. Once, while reading on an omnibus, Mr. Jennings endeavored to push a small monkey out of his way. His umbrella actually seemed to pair the animal. Since that time, the small jet-black primate has followed him, its eyes ever animated with burning malevolence. In the dark, it is enveloped in a glowing reddish aura. Inexplicably, it has been absent for 15 days, but the clergyman suspects it will return. He fears that it will induce a cataleptic state, rendering powerless his own will, and lead him to crime or self-destruction. After this exposition, the first he has made to anyone, Mr. Jennings asks Dr. Hazelius whether the quantities of tea he has taken could have affected his inner eye, the cerebral tissue, alongside the optic nerve. He increasingly has become conscious of the monkey's singing speech, which would seem to have entered his mind through some degeneration of his faculties. Rather soon after his second visit, the doctor received another and, un- and unmistakably arrogant appeal from the Solar-Giant. It is all in vain. When he arrives, Dr. Hazulis is met by Jones, who leads him to his bedroom floor. During his last night on Earth, Mr. Jennings asks his servant whether he could hear the monkey's cousin. Evidently, the master then did away with himself during the early morning hours. In his concluding statement, Dr. Hazelius exposed his belief that Mr. Jennings was persistently affected by hereditary suicidal mania. The doctor contends that the optic nerve is the change by which the inner eye establishes contact with the external world. Prolonged amounts of chemical agents, such as those found in tea, upset the mental equilibrium and renders those effects vulnerable to innate weakness. Dr. Azulis maintains finally that this combination of predisposed melancholia and morbid overstimulation of the nervous system led Mr. Jennings to take his own life. Okay, maybe that's all from me. Wassalamualaikum warahmatullahi wabarakatuh.